Hey everybody, it's been a while since I've done a video, and we are about to exit Sherry's very merry month of May, which is also Mental Health Awareness Month. And I wanted to jump on here and give you some information regarding mental health and intimate partner violence. Depending on which study you look at, 75 to 90% of survivors of intimate partner violence or abuse experience PTSD symptoms, depression, and anxiety. They have a mental health diagnosis, and oftentimes the person who was the perpetrator of this violence does not. And I think we're getting it wrong. But many times getting mental health treatment is the only support that survivors have, and a lot of times it's one of the only coping mechanisms that people are able to reach out and have access to. But you know, PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, and I don't think that the reactions that survivors have to intimate partner violence is disordered. I think that they have very normal reactions and think very normal protective thoughts and avoidant thoughts after experiencing a stimulus that is abnormal. And oftentimes there is no escape from the stimulus. So I think our systems are getting it wrong. I think we're treating the wrong people. I think we need to teach perpetrators not to abuse instead of allowing them to cause damage and then treating the damage that they do in other people's lives. But many times, mental health treatment is the only option, the only tool that people have. Intimate partner violence survivors often engage in many systems to gain relief, and it's simply not there, and they're re-traumatized, making their experiences even worse and altering their behavior even further. Some of the examples are if you're being stalked, especially if you have children with someone, it can be extremely hard to get an order of protection. I'm not sure if you guys remember the case of Michelle O'Miller, who was murdered outside of her workplace when she was trying to leave her ex-husband. She had attempted to get an order of protection and was unable to do so. So that was one remedy where she engaged the system and was unable to obtain results. Many times there's financial abuse, and the perpetrators don't want to help financially raise the children that they've created, and they also oftentimes do things to prevent their victims from being able to earn more money. They cause lots of drama, take up lots of their time, lots of their emotional energy. They cause the children to feel conflicted, and then children that are struggling need a lot of extra help. A kid that is dealing with parental conflict can't just sit down and do their homework like a kid that isn't dealing with it, and many of us have challenges getting our children to complete their assignments even without all of that extra stress. So when you put that on top of it, it creates an environment for financial abuse where the primary parent is the one responsible for getting the kids through their schooling and their activities and these everyday things that are just much more stressful in the presence of parental conflict. Like when you've never been on public aid and you have to go into the public aid office and ask for help, that is a whole other thing, emotionally too. It's hard to say, I can't do this on my own. It's hard to say, I don't have the resources to obtain other employment and increase my income so that I can survive. All of that is very emotionally traumatic too. And our society doesn't recognize that. That's disenfranchised. Lots of people like to wag their fingers at people that don't have the resources to make it and reach out to ask for help. Living in poverty creates mental distress when you don't know whether you're going to be able to keep your lights on, and you don't know if you're going to be able to buy groceries. That creates situations that can cause disturbances in mental health. I already kind of touched on this, but co-parenting with someone who is intentionally trying to harm you and doesn't care that they're harming your children and punishing you. It's hard to just put that in the back of your mind when you're having to communicate with this person all the time, when you're having to tell them about school activities and you're having to share, teacher reports with them, and you're having to work with them to get your children to the things that they care about and keep them socially engaged. And when every time you send a message, somebody's firing back at you, telling you what a terrible person, a terrible parent you are, you can grow a pretty thick skin, but it gets old, and the courts require you to communicate with this person. If you had a job with a boss that treated you badly, you would walk out of that job and not turn back, but you don't have the choice to do that when you are experiencing intimate partner violence. It just isn't an option for many people. And a lot of times perpetrators of violence are going to create drama for you at sporting events. They are going to push your boundaries at schooling events. They are going to interfere with your relationship with coaches and with school administration and with the teacher, and it is going to you're going to have stress when you walk into the school, or whatever situation you're going into. When you've been hit with certain situations so many times, you can't go in and not wonder what you're walking into. And all of that creates an environment of instability, and it makes an environment ripe for mental health issues, or what our society now calls mental health issues. But again, I would argue that they're a normal response to an abnormal stimulus. Lots of people experience legal abuse. You all know my story, 12 years and counting. Every year I hope it's going to end. Every year I say this is going to be it, and I'm sadly usually disappointed when I allow myself to look at the light at the end of the tunnel. But it happens, and there's a lot of emotion that goes to that. You are going before a judge that doesn't really know you. They don't know your children. They only know what tiny amount about your situation that you can give them in a hearing, and you don't even get the whole hearing to explain your situation. There are loads of legal processes that have to be followed and rules that have to be followed. So it's not like you just get to go in there and lay your case out. You have to go through these processes and procedures, and there's really not much time to advocate for your children in there. Legal services most um, people that I know don't make the amount of money that it would cost to really fully fund a legal battle in family court. You know, $300 an hour for an attorney. It takes me a long time to earn that much money. A lot of hours on my end to earn that much money. A lot of times abusers will withhold documentation. So, you know, you get ready to go and you're ready to have some resolution to this conflict that they've created, and it's not going to happen. It just keeps continuing, and it's going to take more money on your part, more time on your part, more of a mental toll. You're not just able to parent your children in the way that's best for them. You have to think about what's best for your children, and then you have to think about how it's going to look in court, and you have to make sure that you've considered you know, any way that it can be spun in a negative direction. And so, you know, we see all of these systems that survivors engage in. And this video is way longer than I wanted it to be. And oftentimes the only place that you can get relief is through mental health counseling, because the only place that you can create relief is in your own body and in your home. And mental health treatment is the way that we're able to do that. And it's really sad that so many of us have to medicate to survive the life that we live and the life that we're given. And it really shouldn't be that way. We should be able to hold perpetrators accountable and, you know, not have to deal with all of these exacerbated emotions, not have to deal with the long-term effects of this, not have to be getting mental health treatment for everybody in your house until your children age out. And then, of course, you know, they'll probably have lots to unpack later too. But I wanted to talk about mental health and intimate partner violence. And even though we're not exactly getting it right, mental health treatment is the best thing that we can do for ourselves. And it has been absolutely life-changing for me. It has really helped me develop a sense of autonomy and a sense that I can create some situations that are in my control, some situations where I can have peace and keep the rest of the world out. So if you're dealing with this, there's hope. Find yourself a counselor, medicate if you have to. Until the world gets it right, we have to work in the system that we're in. Take care, peeps. Bye.